Right, there we are. We are effectively on. Connor Archbold,
Woo.
welcome to the Farr Show, a show to motivate, educate, and inspire our next generation of leaders. We made it, mate. Look, a few bumps in the road there, but nonetheless, the audience don't really need the detail on that, do they?
I don't know.
It's
Leave that. But thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
more, far many more important things to talk about, mate, than what just happened
Yeah,
there. But very good.
yeah.
Hey, thank you very much for spending your time and coming on the show. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I guess let's first and foremost, always good to give some context to the audience here. I guess usually I read out sort of a long-winded bio, but I guess I'll flip the script today and just go, yeah, I guess introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who Connor Archbold is. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're a familiar face across New Zealand headlines now with the big raise, which we're going to get into soon. But yeah, hit the microphone. Let's go.
Yeah, thanks. I'd rather you do the bio, but I'll jump in. That's fine. So I'm Connor. I'm
My
Connor.
last guest said that too.
CEO, co-founder of Tracksuit, which is beautiful, affordable, always on brand tracking. And without the buzzwords, that sort of means that we do tens of thousands of surveys of consumers every single day, week, month, to find out what they think and feel about the world's best brands. And so, yeah, we've now got one of the biggest data sets in the world of how brands are perceived and how they're growing. I think we're tracking 10,000 brands every day now across the world. So we're based in Auckland. We've got a team of about 150. And before Tracksuit, I had a meandering career, to be honest. I started as a lawyer, then got into VC and brought Lightning Lab to Auckland, which was one of our early accelerator programs. Then joined a startup, met my now co-founder Matt in that startup, which we both kind of grew that overseas as employees 5 and 6. And then COVID hit, we both returned to New Zealand and we're figuring out what we were going to do next and partnered with some other brilliant minds to launch Tracksuit. So that was 4 years ago, 2021, and it's been a wild ride. We've really enjoyed it, and yeah, it's been a blast.
Yeah, I'm sure you're enjoying it. Yes, quite the success. Yeah. So when that phrase when they're talking about brand tracking, so like one of your taglines from the website says continuous brand tracking for marketers who need answers,
Mm.
uh, and then on to like finally an easy and affordable way to track brand performance and demonstrate ROI and answer the big bold question, which is my strategy working? I mean,
Mm.
just like in layman's terms, I mean, what problem have you solved effectively with Tracksuit?
So I like to talk about it. There's this rule called the 95/5 rule, and essentially marketers have two jobs to do. You've got to create future demand and you've got to capture existing demand. So the way that if I'm doing a talk, I'll sort of say, hey, everyone in the audience, raise your hand if you're going to buy a phone in the next month. And, a few people raise their hand, about 5% of people. And I'll say, okay, raise your hand if you're going to buy a phone in the next 5 years at some point, and 100% of people raise their hand, the other 95%. So marketers have two jobs. They've got to market to the existing demand, the people that are going to buy a phone in the next month. And those people need price. They need megapixels on camera. They need to know where the nearest store is. They need to know if there are discounts. That's like performance marketing. And then you got to advertise to the 95% of people who they don't actually care about the price because they're not going to buy this phone. They're going to buy one in the future. They don't need to know where the store is. That's annoying for them. They don't need to know discounts or megapixels. They're going to buy a phone at some point in the future. They need to know that, Apple makes them think different. They need to know if you've got good privacy so their family photos aren't going to be shared. They want to know if that brand is aligned with their values, and so that's what brand marketing is. It's sort of building awareness, consideration, and preference with this group of folks who aren't in the market to buy that product necessarily right now. And so
Right.
every marketing tool you've probably seen or come across tends to be measuring how effective marketers are doing marketing to the 5%. Hey, and that's measured through clicks and revenue. Like, are you getting more clicks? Are you getting more revenue? Are you converting more of those people? We measure how marketers are doing to the 95%. Are you changing their perception of your brand? Do they feel like your brand is for people like them? Do they trust you? And so we're measuring that through lots of surveys to find out, what people think.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And then the buzzword that's thrown around quite heavily is that word brand sentiment. What does brand sentiment mean exactly?
Really just like we measure it through an open text box, like what comes to mind when you think about this brand? And that's one of the, that's the first question. Then people will write in things that they associate with that brand. And then the next tier of questions might be, is this a brand you trust? And they tick the brands that they trust. Is this a brand that is for people like you? And they tick the ones that are for people like them.
Mm,
Is it a brand that's got great flavors, or is it cool, or whatever the brand actually cares about, they tend
mm.
to then measure against those core profiles.
Right, right. I mean, effectively, I mean, a brand's a personality, isn't it, really? In a way.
Say that again. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
So a brand is a personality, isn't it, really, with a range of characteristics. Like if you were to chuck 10 humans in a room and 10 brands in a room, like, there'd be similarities and nuances amongst that they would share sort of common. Like, yeah, if you talk about why someone loves a brand, I mean, they'd be drilling into kind of the personality of it. Would that make sense? Or
Yeah, yeah. Often people are describe the brand as like a personality of a company. People have their own brands. Like what is on brand for Luke? What is on brand for Connor? The like people more and more with the creator economy, there people are brands and they are building their own, you know, empires off the back of their personal brands. So I think that's a very relevant question, and how brands are perceived sort of dictates the kind of marketing they do. So when a marketer engages Tracksuit, they'll often see all of that information and then they'll create their strategy in order to double down on what's working and possibly capture a share of the market that they think is
Mm.
worth going after.
Gotcha. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I resonate with that. Yeah, I mean, we all, whether or not we like it or not, we all have our own personal brand. I mean, how would you describe Connor's brand? And then, I mean, even like you just said it there, you're like, how would you describe Luke's brand? I mean, something comes to mind. Connor are definitely very, very efficient with Zoom and technology and getting meetings flowing really well. That would be on brand for me. But
Yeah.
what would be on brand for Connor?
Oh man, I think more and more a lot of what I have to do, the challenges I face are like, my personal growth as a leader of this company. My job changes every 3 to 6 months, it feels like, with the pace that we're growing. And so there's a interesting, like, I try to sit in the middle of this Venn diagram that is like humble, hungry, and smart. And if you sit in the middle of that, you're able to grow if you can embody those three things. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And in order to facilitate as much growth as possible for myself and to be the leader that Tracksuit needs me to be. Um, yeah.
How do you ensure you're staying humble, hungry, and smart? Was it those humble, hungry, and smart?
Yeah. I mean, I have a coach who's giving me feedback from like the coaching angle. I have a therapist who's sort of helping me not get in my own way, I would say. And then asking for, having an amazing team around you is paramount, and so I have a great exec team. I have a great co-founder. I have a great board and investors who are kind of holding me to those principles, but also helping me, get back into the lane that I'm trying to be in. And I
When you
think
when
that's
you said
important for
therapist, when
everyone.
you said therapist, did you mean you're not referring to your wife? You mean external
No, yeah,
therapist?
no, yeah. But I should have said my wife also definitely helps me keep in mind. Tracksuit would not be where it is without her, helping me grow and sort of calling out where I'm getting in my own way. And
Mm,
so, yeah, I think that that's another important part of the puzzle.
yeah, fantastic. And I mean, I've read there that you guys have been sort of renowned as the largest ever venture capital raise for a local startup. Is that true?
That's definitely not true.
Oh, right. Hey, I appreciate transparency and honesty. That's what the Luke Farr show embodies. I love that. Instead of you
Uh,
sugarcoating it, you're just like, that's absolute
no,
BS.
it's a pretty. I think we raised a large Series B, which it's a big Series B by New Zealand standards. It's
25,
not
25 million, right?
USD, yeah,
USD.
by New Zealand standards. So I think that's what was unique about it was that it's a large Series B by New Zealand standards. I don't know whether it's the biggest or if it's even close to the biggest. Um, I think people call round sizes all sorts of different things, so it's hard to really compare apples with apples. But I
True.
think we're honestly in a really exciting phase where New Zealand startup, the ambition that the New Zealand startup ecosystem is sort of reaching for is growing, and you see like Aura raising big round last year. You see Halter just closing 160 mil NZD round. Like, oh, it's so good. So I think I think in general, like, New Zealand and Australia, the startups in both of these countries are like raising the ambition. They're raising what they think they can do, and we're all starting to like look towards those bigger growth metrics and seeing like, hey, we can do this. And I think that's buoyed off of Canva and Airwallex and these
Mm,
large Australian companies that have
mm.
proven the path is there. And in New Zealand, we've got all sorts, Rocket Lab, and like folks that have come out of that, and we're all sort of growing together. So, I just think it's an exciting time. The ambition's lifting. There is the
Yeah.
capital to fund the companies as well. And so, yeah, it's just a great time. And there is a cohort that's sort of coming up that is really exciting.
That's super exciting, man, for sure. And look, I mean, as we all know, any journalist never lets the truth get in the way of a good story. And I've read there that effectively Tracksuit is valued at 400 million USD. I mean, way back when it all started, Connor, I mean, you got your first 10 clients on board whom were happy to part way with 10K NZD for a yearly subscription. That was many moons ago. I mean, what have been some of the biggest mistakes along the way that when you look back now, you're like, sheesh, I would have done that differently?
Yeah, it's hard to know. So just that the valuation is not right either. So I'll just say that.
Oh,
But we're not talking
right.
about valuation at this stage. Um, but we're like,
Redacted?
yeah, redacted. No, I mean it's I think like we've had a pretty honestly we've had a pretty like blessed journey as Tracksuit. Like it's been 4 years. We have grown that whole time, and I think the things that we question are like, you know, we don't necessarily regret things that we've done. It's just like, did we make the right choice at that crossroads? And I think
Mm,
we've like had opportunities to expand the product footprint. We've said no to a lot of like really big world-renowned brands because we weren't really willing to like build any bespoke solutions for them. And we've just kind of honestly put the blinders on and stayed focused on doing this one thing really, really well for these first 4 years. And this Series B, a lot of it is about starting to expand the focus and the product footprint and starting to use our data set, make it the most accessible data set for anyone that wants to understand what's happening at the top of funnel for brands. And that's really exciting. But I think, Matt and I will always kind of sit back and go, oh, should we have opened up 20 countries a few years ago? Like we could be 10 times the size, or should we have done this product thing? I think about 25% of our inbound leads are for B2B tracking, as an example. And we don't do B2B tracking. So we just
yeah.
say, sorry, we can't do that right now. And we point them to someone who does, or we say, good luck out there. But that's, there's a ton of growth that we could have gone after, but we've sort of tried to put the
God,
blinders
yeah,
on and
yeah,
stay
yeah, yeah.
focused.
No, tunnel vision.
Yeah. And I think the other, like, everything breaks every, I'd say 6 months, every time you double in size from when you're 15 people. So, when you're 1 to 15 people, it's fine. Then at 30 people, everything breaks. And at 60 people, everything breaks. And then at 120, everything breaks. And through all of those different, periods, there's a lot of questions about, did you put the right process in place? Could you have done it better? could you have foreseen that it was going to break and try to get ahead of it? And so we've always had these kind of like peaks and troughs of whether the team feels like we're really in high performance mode and charging, and whether we're actually doing a lot of like checking. There's too many meetings and too many Slack messages and all that sort of stuff. So, we'd love to get ahead of those breakages in the future, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
I doubt it will happen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that. And then, and you look at your founding partner, you're like, was it a good idea hiring Hamish Matheson, who's just going to grow this company far quicker than we anticipated?
I
Shout
mean,
out Hamish. I know him
shout
well.
out
He's
Hamish.
an absolute legend.
Yeah, yeah, that is a good decision. Always,
Oh,
always hire a Hamish Matheson.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
yeah,
He's an absolute weapon. Hey, I do want to change course a little bit and do a bit of a segue there into back into where it all started for you, back into childhood. Because I think there's some really good learnings and insights out of one's childhood. I mean, if you were to, yeah, kind of like sort of just literally take your childhood and look back at that and say, oh, sheesh, some of those traits or learnings or how I grew up has, formed or has turned me into the person that I am today. What would some of those be? Something that you obviously still use today and that's actually naturally ingrained in you characteristic wise.
yeah, that's a good question. One thing that I am a pretty resilient person. Like I sort of say I have a bit of grit. And I think one of the things, I lived in like over 20 houses before I was 18. Like we bounced around a lot.
Wow.
And so always kind of like making new friends. We immigrated from the States to New Zealand, moved schools a fair few times. And I think it just I think you have to, I'm lucky to have had really great parents through that. And so instead of that being trauma, it turned into resilience, and probably a bit of grit. And so like, yeah, I'm grateful for that. And I think that's the glass half full version of moving around a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
And I think like that resilience also, like I started work really young, like, and I've now got three young daughters, and I'm pretty keen for them to start work relatively early and learn what it is to like do hospo and fold clothes in a warehouse or something, and like do a bit of that grunt
Yeah.
work, because
Do the shit. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Figure, figure,
hard.
figure out where you don't want to stay. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And just like get used to working like and getting dirty or getting mucking in, I just think that that's really important. So I'm grateful for my parents having, sort of forced me to do that.
Well,
And
your founder describes you as a grizzly bear. What does he mean by that?
it's,
Yeah,
I think there's
I've done my
sometimes,
homework, mate. I hope you're
yeah,
prepared to pay off
yeah, yeah.
time.
What else have you got hidden up your sleeve?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The
Let's put it this way, mate. I think I've got more better poker cards. Yeah, yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, the grizzly bear moniker definitely, like sometimes you get mama bear like Connor, or like cuddly bear Connor, where you're just like, coming in for the big hug, and it's all rosy. And then sometimes you get the grizzly Connor, which is like, hey, it's time to buckle up, let's do some work. And so I feel like
Yeah, yeah, Connor,
he's picked a
there's a medical term for that, mate.
yeah, yeah.
Let's
Don't
just call it
let's
let's
stay
just
with
call it
grizzly bear as
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
let's stay with
Let's
grizzly
just
bear.
call it Jekyll and Hyde for
Um,
now.
yeah, yeah. So I think, that's he one time the team asked him what my spirit animal would be, and he picked the bear because there's a bit of both there.
And I think
Yeah.
you called him a what was it, golden retriever, I think, from memory. Yeah.
No, he's
Oh,
like
sorry, border collie.
he's like a cross. He's like a border collie golden retriever cross. Because he's always got next steps planned. He's like asked good questions. He's so excited. He's also got the biggest smile. You walk around the corner in the office, you see him, and it just lights up your day.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
he's like, he's got the task list. He's prepared. He's got next steps. And he's also just the brightest smile in the office. So
Well, because you're both lawyers, aren't you?
yeah, he got he was training, he trained to be a lawyer, and then I think he jumped into Uber as they were launching in the South Island. So that was his kind of entry in, and then I think that was so exciting that he kind of skipped the law stuff, which, makes sense. And I jumped into a law firm straight after uni for about 3 years. And that's where I met my wife. And then, I enjoyed it. I think it was like really good learnings before I jumped into the VC and startup world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, because you spent some time there at Bell Gully. You were a corporate attorney, weren't you?
Yeah.
And then actually, because you've had like, so the traversing's quite interesting, and I want to touch on that a little bit. I mean, yeah, corporate attorney, Bell Gully, COO, Mish Guru, and also your partner was head of business development. So I assume that he's an absolute sales gun, and it sounds like he is. Then you were a consultant at No Issue, New York, and then a partner at Previously Unavailable. And then to now, CEO, co-founder, Tracksuit. I mean, when you break that career journey down, it's not exactly a status quo, straightly mapped out trajectory. Like
No.
when looking at the skills and learnings though that you would have accumulated across all of your past roles, like which skills do you think have become the most powerful and useful for you now that you're running your own business?
I think like what that path probably shows is like, I think I'm just like a first principles problem solver. Like I love just seeing a business model or seeing a product or something that needs growth or needs a problem solved. And I love just like diving into it and looking at what the actual result you're trying to get to is. And then I'm quite maybe good at designing the simplest, most efficient way of getting there and not paying attention to the status quo too much in designing that. And I think that's tends to be what I've done everywhere I've gone. And that actually isn't that helpful in the legal sphere. People tend to like you to conform to what you're supposed to do in the status quo. It's actually what law is building on the status quo. So that was never going to be the place for me, probably.
If you were, Connor, if you were to take what you're doing now at Tracksuit, or if you were to go down the path of potentially being in that lawsuit and case with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, which would you choose?
I don't even know.
Would you stay where
That's
you
that
are, or would you rather the glitz, glamour, and fame and notoriety from being in that courtroom?
that courtroom sounds absolutely terrible. No, I don't, and I don't know very much about that, but that sounds terrible. And I think I would much rather be where I am now.
Yeah, yeah, 110%, man. Sheesh, you guys have gone on quite the journey. Look, just moving into, I guess, getting a little bit granular about what you guys are doing, and I want to sort of frame back into what agencies traditionally were doing. So, like historically, brand tracking has been, and you mentioned it earlier, you alluded to it, it's been expensive, it's outdated, and it's inaccessible. I mean, just can you run me through how agencies traditionally were actually tracking brand success?
I mean, brand tracking is one of the oldest forms of market research out there. Like in the 1960s, there would have been someone with a clipboard outside supermarkets being like, "Oh, I see you bought that peanut butter brand. Why'd you buy that one? Did you consider any others? What's your preferred brand?" Like that was brand tracking, and so it's been around for a long time. And essentially, data collection became more efficient, so you could do it through emails, and then data kind of like making it easy to digest through nice graphs and visualization became easier. But when Tracksuit came along, generally it was still mostly in slide packs. So it'd be like an account manager doing those surveys and then prepping the information into a slide pack and presenting that to like a board or a marketing team. And there are really great things about that. Often it's more bespoke and you might be able to ask questions of that person. But our goal was to sort of automate the entire data collection and then data visualization part. And then now, 4 years on, we've actually also automated the insights generation. So, using AI, you sort of draw out the most important stories that you need to tell as a marketer or a board member from that data. And that's kind of the next gen version is to be able to do great storytelling, but have that automated.
Right, gotcha. And you mentioned a word there, kind of pitching. Let's dive into that because like your new funding was led by San Francisco-based investment firm VMG Partners, and
Mhm.
then with your existing investors, including Blackbird and Icehouse Ventures, also contributing. For the up and coming entrepreneurs out there that are seeking funding, can we sort of run through like a process like when it comes to pitching and successfully landing the investment? Like, what does that process actually look like?
So I think it's pretty different for most companies. For every company, it's a little bit different, and you got to play to your strengths. And so our strength is momentum, and so I play to that. So I sort of am an always on um, fundraising founder. Some founders like, they will time block out a month where they're going to meet 30, 40 funds and then kick things off. I'm more an always on founder in that I'm meeting with one VC or two VCs every week and just sort of like add them to our stakeholder update and get them excited about our momentum. And so, we've known VMG for over a year, and have been talking to them and figuring out how we want to partner and what that looks like. And then it sort of gets to a point where we as Tracksuit go build a business case for what we would do with the money that we raise. Like, what are the fun, exciting bets we're going to take? And then we will kind of present that to the partners that we've gotten really close to over the last year. Um, and that's how we do it. And I think some people think it's crazy that I meet with one or two VCs every week. But for me, that just, it kind of makes the job. I get to do DD on them over the time that I know them. They get to do DD on us. Due diligence is DD. So they're kind of finding out who we are, how we operate. We're doing the same. And I like doing that over a period of time because really, the people that you raise money from, you got to be ready to build alongside them for 10 years, and so it's a really important relationship to get right. um,
Yeah,
yeah.
so you're ultimately looking for that mutually beneficial relationship, but at what point sort of does the pendulum swing between sort of the hierarchy of sort of who needs who more, you know what I mean? Like it's like sort of you're really seeking money because you're eyeing that growth up, but then are you still very humble and conservative and you're not just going to jump into anything just because of the money? Like it's got to fit right on many levels and nuances, I imagine. So yeah,
Yeah.
there must be quite a bit to navigate there, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I like doing it slowly over a long period of time, is you get to sort of answer those questions, uh, rather than being rushing over a month or two to try and find someone who's willing to give you money. It's sort of like find a partner who you enjoy working with, who, you create mutual value and you're aligned on kind of the future that you want to build. Regardless, the money is kind of separate. It's like, oh, great, that's a vehicle to achieve our goals that we're aligned on. And so, yeah, that's why I like doing it that way.
An analogy that comes to mind just there is it's not too dissimilar from finding your wife or life partner, really, isn't it? You know, you go through that. It's the same. It's like you go through awareness stage, then into consideration, and then into conversion. It's the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to build
Yeah.
trust
Well,
along the way. You got to, find
yeah.
confidence. Right.
Yeah, it's sort of like dating, the meeting VCs,
Yeah.
it's sort of you're finding out whether you're aligned, whether your values are similar. And so yeah, it's a long-term process for us. That's what we like to do.
Yeah, and speaking of dating, let's just quickly look. This is not that I have a script. I like to keep it very ad hoc, but on that point around dating apps, do they? I've always wondered because I come from an ad agency background. I understand that model, but as far as valuation for those dating apps, is that purely just based on the number of users, right?
I don't know. I don't know much about dating apps or their
I
business
guess
models.
I'm actually asking the wrong I'm asking the wrong person here. Like,
Yeah.
he's like a happily married man, ladies and gentlemen. He's got three kids. He's like, mate,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I've never worked at one of those or really known anyone who's worked there, so um not sure, to be honest.
well, I mean, it would not be too dissimilar to the model of, I mean, let's just take Snapchat or Meta, right? I mean, it's like, right, we're going to get ads because we've got the audience, and then how many
Yeah.
users, how many people are using your app? That's how I
Do
was.
do they sell ads? I've honestly never used a dating app.
Yeah.
It dates I'm older then
Yeah, yeah.
it
So there's
dates
ads.
me,
So
but
there's ads.
are
So
there
they,
ads in there? Are
yeah.
they
So there's
ad
ads in there,
places? Yeah.
and then they monetize through paid subscription, etc. So you can sort
Yeah.
of, so that's their model. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. I guess, yeah. So then it's ads, then it's a social media channel, essentially.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Interesting.
Let's. I wanted to yeah, nice little segue there, right? Yeah, really, guys, we're taking tangents, which is great. I want to talk about hiring. You obviously, you guys are growing exponentially. You're hiring a lot. I mean, you're now at you're at 150 staff, right, across New York, London, Sydney, and Auckland, or am I missing?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
about accurate?
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. And plans to potentially hire 50 more in the coming year. I mean, above anything else, what do you think? Connor, is like the number one trait you personally look for when hiring? Obviously, your business partner might look for other things, but you personally, what is that golden ticket for you when you're looking and you're interviewing a lot and you're just really seeking out this one thing that you feel as though that would contribute the best to the business?
Mm. I think we still really prioritize culture fit at Tracksuit and like whether they are a person who's got the ability to grow. And so do they fit within that hungry, humble, smart kind of
Mm,
Venn diagram. And so I think we look for that because everyone's job changes here pretty frequently. And so you got to be comfortable with that sort of ambiguity and not even be comfortable. You got to be excited by it. It's got to be like the thing that you like is growing through ambiguity. So we look for that and just yeah, like good humans, people that you want to hang out with because again, it's it's hard work growing a unicorn or going through hyper growth, and so you got to be sitting next to people that you want to hang out with. And yeah, I think more and more like as we get bigger, you want half the people lifting you up. So they've kind of been there and done that. They've built a company that is bigger than yours. They've gone through the growing pains you're about to go through. So we think of that as, a certain proportion of the team are lifting us up and a certain proportion of the team are like climbing. They're just like, yeah, I'm going to do it as well. And they're learning from these people. And so you always want to have the right proportions doing both of those things, which is something we think about.
yeah, sheesh, I was just sort of thinking that through. I mean, yeah, when you've got those sort of hungry climbers, right, and they phrase the term, oh, I've really outgrown my role, and where are those next opportunities, to challenge people? But how do you I guess with a company that's moving so fast and growing so fast like Tracksuit, there is always that next role for them, right?
Yeah. And
At that high growth stage versus when companies were sort of plateau and then just to slow down a little bit, and then
yeah.
someone then finds themselves more likely to outgrow the role. But right now, are you finding that a lot of people are, being promoted in a pretty quick amount of time, and
There's
they're
like I think there's two really great ways to, grow in any business. So you can like go on the kind of vertical manager track, or you can go on the like, I don't know if it's diagonal, but the sort of like you get better at your job, like you improve as an IC. And some people love the manager track and they're amazing managers, but their job turns into pure management, which is actually quite different from whatever the reason why they joined in the first place, what their skill set was. And so you got to make sure that you're training good managers and you treat that as a specific skill set that you want people to get good at.
mm,
And then you also need to reward people for growing as individual contributors. So, like, it shouldn't be that everyone takes the manager track because, first of all,
mm,
it's not fun for everyone to manage. And second of all, like, they're better placed to do the other thing that
mm,
they're phenomenal at already. And so, we try to reward people for doing both of those things. Yes, you can grow and manage and be a team lead, or you can grow as you're in your role as an individual contributor and take on more responsibility and do bigger projects and things like that. And so I think it's important to do both. And if you are rewarding for both of those things, then at a high growth company, there is ample opportunity.
mm. Yeah, 100%. where if we were to unpack sort of like let's sort of have that crystal ball and moving into the future, is this going to be a classic story of yeah they got acquired by X for a billion, see you later, you're no, or are you in this for the
Oh,
long haul and yeah what where can we see traction in the next 5 to 10 years?
I've just, our vision is to get our data into every boardroom in the world. And to do that, we got to be the common language that anyone uses to measure or communicate the value of brand. And so like we think that we can achieve those things in the next 5 years and be the common language, have our data in every boardroom. And the exciting thing about that is that all companies, if our data is in every boardroom, then companies are thinking about top of funnel and awareness. And that means they're building long-term companies. They're not building flash in the pan companies that spark up and then die off. They're building brands with longevity, and that's exciting because they're real companies. And so that's what we want. We want everyone to be investing their marketing in a way that allows their company to grow long term, and they'll do that by having top of funnel data in their boardroom. So that's what we think about, and we think if we do that, then there'll be tons of options for exits or whatever we want. But we're not so focused on kind of the result. We're more focused on what we're building and how we get there.
Yeah, 100%. And there's no doubt, no argument there. You're building something truly great. Someone once said, hey, a great brand is built on a foundation of distinctiveness, consistency, and a deep understanding of its target audience. You've been in the brand game a while. Is there anything else you'd add to that?
I I think more and more that the best brands are quite authentic to, where they started or what their foundations are. You get caught out pretty quick if you're building a company that the covering is like not what is underneath. And so I think authenticity is really important if you're going to build a long-standing brand. And not every brand needs to look the same. You build a brand based on what your values are and what you're trying to achieve, and those kind of core tenets of brand building that you described. Um, and if you do that and you're authentic about it, no one can stop you.
So true, so true. Look, there's been many curly questions I've thrown at you, Connor, over the space of this interview for the Luke Farr show. But I think this one here, and this is gonna end on this, and probably gonna be the most challenging. And I say that because quite simply, the game you're in, I'm sure you have to remain slightly unbiased. But I'm going to throw it at you anyway, and I'm sure you can say it because
I'm
it's what
nervous.
you
I'm
feel, and
nervous.
you're nervous, yeah. But it's like what's in your heart, and what do you like the most? But you have so many different brands on board, and so this is quite a challenging question. So here it is. Here it is. I mean, sheesh, there's such a huge anticipation right now.
I
It's actually
know.
it's not.
Sweating,
It's
sweating.
actually not. Yeah, it's
Go.
actually not that great of a question, really. But what comes to mind when I say, name me a brand that you are absolutely in love with right now and the reason why?
Oh, I was hoping that was going to be the question. Um, this painted jacket,
Just one brand though. What
one
just
brand, painted jacket.
okay.
So the thing I love about this brand is that the founders started it, and it is completely reworking the business model of fashion. So they just like release a few items every year, and they are like entirely bespoke. Your jacket is one of 500 that is made or something like that. And they've designed it as like a lifestyle company and
Does look like a
to
nice jacket, yeah.
and so you get, there's maybe 3, 4 times a year they'll release a jacket or a t-shirt. Their t-shirt, I think it was called the 6 Mile Tee, because from like the farm to where it was sewn, and it traveled 6 miles. And so like, it's super sustainable, interesting. And they just like the way they engage with their customers is great. It's very intentional. I'm quite obsessed with like people being intentional about things. And I think this brand do it very well. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. And do you think the biggest driver there ultimately, well, there's an array of drivers, but ultimately the because I gravitate towards this as well. It's the scarcity being like, look, there's only 10 of them, and that 10 though that they put so much energy, heart, and love into that, and I look at that and I go, sheesh, I don't know, it's a weird thing, and I don't know. Look, I'm going to throw it out there. I don't know if that's just literally a sort of an ego thing to be like, oh, well, I'm the only one. There's only 10 of us that own this in the world. Like I'm sort of looking over at my snow, but there's some of the like brands do that. They go, we're only making 20 of these, right? And like
Mm,
that Travis Rice Pro over there, which is a LibTech Travis Rice Pro, he made 20 of them. But I was like, I know it's a good board, but also there's only 20 of them. And so yeah,
yeah.
is that what kind of motivated you as well with the brand?
I mean, I think that's good marketing. Like, that's great marketing. And if you want to be part of that select club, then that's a great thing to sign up for. And that is definitely part of this. For me, it's kind of the community. Like they do really, I like the intention behind it. And whether they made 10,000 or 500, I don't know that it would change that much for my desire. I don't know that they could be this intentional if they made 10,000. That would be a very difficult business to run, because it's like small batch and small factories. So I don't know how they would do
Yeah.
that, but I think they're kind of part and parcel for this brand. But I think, you sort of get added to like a special Instagram account where they show you like the jacket being made, and they send you a map of the town where the factory is and their favorite cafes, and
Oh,
they're
cool.
just like really little touches that I think are brilliant.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
so
that.
yeah.
I appreciate that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I guess with that sort of limited number of production, it's not so much of the, oh, I'm one of the 8 billion humans that actually have this. It's more so I find the curiosity about have they simply just done it for a marketing ploy
Mm,
or was it look we are making something that takes so long and we're putting so much work in that yeah, like you said, we can't make 10,000 of them. And so therefore I then my simple logic mindset goes, sheesh, they've put in way more love to this product than any other products they've ever made. And so
mm.
therefore I go, right, there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it. I mean, I like it for a ton of reasons, and that lines up with them for sure.
So true. Hey, look, it's 12:02. You said hard stop at 12:08. Connor, thank you so much for coming on the Luke Farr Show to motivate, educate, and inspire our next generation of leaders. You have certainly done that, kind sir. Thank you for coming on. It's been a fantastic interview. I appreciate your time, mate.
Thanks, Luke. It's been great to be here. Appreciate it, man.
All, all good. I'll just hit that stop record.